Beep beep. News from the Jester. Answer me a question. I was to bake you a cake, a walnut cake. You said to me I was a cake baker. You came to me and said, "Make us a cake." I made you a walnut cake, and then you discovered that the walnut cake contained toenails, right, and bits of shit off the floor, and that actually I was an incompetent baker. You'd sue me for being an incompetent baker, and rightly so, because I was an incompetent baker. At what point do we get to the situation where a politician is so incompetent that we should be able to sue them? And that's the question I want to ask you today, after you've shared, subscribed, bought me a coffee, all the usual, become a warrior teacher. Look, we're back in Scotland, and we've got an article here from the Scottish Daily Express about Humza useless, right, okay? What this engenders, I'm having a job getting my head around what this engenders, okay? Humza Yousaf backs puberty blockers for 12-year-olds as care critics call for review and resignations. 12-year-olds. The care inspectorate's guidance, branded wickedly irresponsible, reached the Holyrood debating chamber where the First Minister said he backed clinical decisions to give preteens puberty blockers and knocked back contradicting evidence. That one paragraph, let's talk about that. Because that one paragraph says that Humza Useless is so unbelievably ill-informed about the situation, that first and foremost he does not understand the continuing capture of the National Health Service, the continuing capture of individual trusts in the NHS, the continuing capture of UNESCO and other Unison and other unions, the continuing capture by critical social justice zealots within this extraordinary organisation, the NHS, which is in itself a socialist state, right? He doesn't understand it. He doesn't understand the arguments. He doesn't understand what's happened. He doesn't understand because he will not listen. He refuses to listen. Scotland, as a critical social justice ideologue and cult supporter, as its leader, again, not content with old, burgeoning, sturgeoning, whatever her name was, they've now got this idiot. Humza Useless. Humza Yousaf has said he supports decisions being made by clinicians in response to concern over fresh guidance for children and young people in care. Young people in care, that's another indicator that they're liable to take on a trans identity. And young people in care that suggest 12-year-olds are allowed to consent to puberty blockers. He was told that the guidance put together by the Care Inspectorate with the help of controversial charity LGBT Youth Scotland, who I believe are under investigation for various other things, has been deemed a threat to safeguarding and advised outdated treatments for those suffering with gender confusion. There is no treatment for gender confusion other than you can't be what you aren't. Here's the history. Now let's get some therapy. That's the treatment. End of story. Among those outraged by the review are prominent social worker Maggie Mellon, who said the guidance should be withdrawn immediately and the board and senior managers should resign and a full review of governments take place. Maggie Mellon, spot on, right? Maggie Mellon's fruity take. No, I'm kidding. Well done, Maggie. And it's serious, for God's sake, The guidance should be withdrawn immediately and the board and senior manager should resign and a full review of governance take place. During First Minister's questions, Deputy Conservative leader Megan Gallagher said the guidance signposts the Sanderford Gender Care Clinic, for those of you that do not know. The Sanderford Gender Care Clinic, which is a misnomer in the name to begin with, is the same as the Tavistock. It's the same boondoggle, right? It signposts that clinic in Glasgow for transgender and non-binary young people. There's no such thing. It's just all cobblers, right? The NHS centres use many of the same service styles as the shamed Tavistock Clinic in London, which was at the heart of the Cash Review that took issue with the prescribing of irreversible medication and affirmative care. Mr. Gallagher said more and more brave young people are coming forward with their harrowing stories. Sorry, Miss Gallagher, I do apologise. More and more brave young people are coming forward with their harrowing stories about surgery and the lack of mental and emotional support they received, as well as educational, which isn't in here and should be. Education's a huge part of this, folks. When's somebody going to say it? So can the First Minister clarify, this was what was asked, if he supports puberty blockers being prescribed to 12-year-olds? He responded, I support these decisions being made by clinicians, being made by those who have clinical knowledge. He doesn't understand. He doesn't understand the capture. Right? He doesn't understand it. Now, there's only two things that are possible here. I'm a nut job. Everybody else that's involved is a nut job. We're all nut jobs. It's all come from Twitter. None of it's true. And what we're seeing is, in fact, just us making it up and finding patterns that aren't real. Or we have a serious threat to governance and to care in our society being driven by a cult. That's the only two possible answers there are. I'm not saying they're doing it deliberately. I'm not saying that there's, it's Hannon's razor again. I keep saying it, but that's the only two possibilities. Am I wrong? Have we got it all wrong? I get up every day and think this. I know most GC people do. Am I wrong? The others don't. That's a tenor. I support these decisions being made by clinicians who have clinical knowledge, replied Yusuf. This is what we should be doing. We should be trusting those with that clinical expertise, as opposed to standing up here in the chamber where we don't have those expertise, making judgment about what is best for young people who are in need of gender identity services. He doesn't get it. He just doesn't get it. There's no such thing as gender identity. What the hell's up with you? In terms of the CAS review, that is a preliminary report. I think it's well understood that health service in England and Scotland do differ quite significantly. Yeah, you're damn right, because people like you are allowing it to. Miss Gallagher, is it Gallagher or Gallagher? I can't make sure. I do apologise again. Said she was really concerned by this, and it goes against the caution expressed by the interim CAS review and the lack of evidence surrounding puberty blockers. The Scottish Government also needs to listen to the concerns raised in the CAS review, she added. Miss Mellon from Evidence-Based Social Work Alliance, that's the EBSWA, that's a group worth following. The Care Inspectorate have betrayed children and parents and also staff working in this area. They are denying the rights of staff to work ethically according to their professional standards, which insist on evidence and on doing no harm. Firstly, do no harm. The CI response acknowledges that their best practice is based on the claims of LGBT Youth Scotland. They're a bunch of activists telling people how to medicalise children, whose practice with young people is under complaint. They have no evidence to support their advocacy for breast binders, puberty blockers, mastectomies and castration, all of which cause long-term physical and mental health problems. Why is this a question? I don't feel like a boy today, I feel like a girl. I'm going to set myself on a path that means I'll have my cock and balls removed. Yeah, sunshine, you're not doing that, right? And if you insist on doing that, they're coming to take you away. Ha ha, hee hee. Mm-hmm. Let me tell you the story of why you think that. Let's go back a bit, right? Let's talk about some history. Let's talk about the reality of the world we live in now. Let me tell you a story, and then we'll see whether or not you want to do it. There's an educational issue here as well. They're not getting the education. They did not consult, this LGBT Youth Scotland nutters, they did not consult any social workers, psychologists, psychiatrists, parents and women's groups, or indeed anyone with a critical view. Of course they didn't. They're the cult. The Care Inspectorate said the guidance aims to support care services for children and young people to enhance the inclusion. There you go, that's it. It's got nothing to do with medicine. It's about getting this transgender, non-binary bullshit into every aspect of our society. We have based this document on current best practice guidance, which will have come from WPATH, referred to throughout this guidance and detailed in the useful reference sections at the end. We will update it as and when available guidance changes. They're not interested in fact. They've got their little bunny sitting in the middle. There's Humza useless, right? Whatever he's doing in the background, God knows. And there'll be other little Humza uselesses wandering around the Scottish Parliament. And it'll be, well, the guidance now is you can give them the puberty blockers, but let's move it to 13 instead of 11 because that upsets the parents. They're not interested in anything to do with fact. They're not interested in anything to do with the morality of firstly do no harm. What they are interested in doing is harming your children to shore up their cult-like beliefs. Or, of course, I'm completely wrong. Now we know in the Dupers. Ta-da!